is Ramesh Ravishankar, and today we have a very special guest in Marc Mapes. Marc Mapes is the CRO of Kapta, and today, as part of our podcast, we are going to talk to Mark, talk to him about AI, talk to him about his journey, talk to him about what Kapta does, and more importantly, how does he see this entire change for having been there as a part of the sales teams of multiple companies in very senior positions. We're going to see how Mark has been seeing this transformation in his journey in the sales departments of companies. So please join me in joining Mark Mapes. Hello, Mark, and welcome to our podcast, Outbound by High Performer. My name is Ramesh, and thanks for joining in. Really appreciate it. I'm going to be a host today. We find your profile extremely interesting, and I thought you should definitely join us today. How are you doing?
Hi, Ramesh. Thanks. Yeah, interesting is definitely one word for it. It's been a journey. I'm not gonna lie. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So we'll do a few things in this podcast. We're going to keep it live. We're going to try and see uh, get the best out of you in terms of your journey. The world needs to know because you are the single CRO and the only salesperson at Capta.
That's
So
right.
tell us more about Capta and tell us about your role and why are you, how big is your team and why have you chosen to be that?
Yeah, I am the CRO at Kapta. We have there's four of us at the whole company. So we're although we've been around for 8 years, we're still a small team, small but mighty team. And Capta is, we've kind of transitioned to calling it a CRM for account teams that hate their CRM, right? So traditional CRMs are built for new business, for building pipeline and all of the outreach and everything that happens on what the revenue bow tie, right? So new business CRMs are focused on the left side. Capta takes over when they become a customer, and we help them retain and grow customers through strategic account management. And what that means is account plans, QBR, SWOT analysis, white space analysis, risk assessment, health scores, all of that stuff that helps account teams. And we feel account management a team sport, not just a title, right? So that means account managers, CS, RevOps, everyone that has a revenue attached to their role lives inside a Capta, and that information bi-direction goes back and forth to whatever data systems the company wants to use. I've been here I started fractionally last year, almost this time, and joined full time in January to help us go from kind of a lifestyle business to turning it into a real. I hesitate to say real. You know what I mean? I don't mean to underplay what we've done
Of
because it's
course.
pretty significant what we've done so far. About 25 customers and global expansions on two customers that are going to go to 1,000 users. So I don't mean to downplay at all what our history
All
has
right.
been, but we're going to duplicate those efforts and go forward from here.
All right. Yeah, a lot that you've spoken. So I'm going to just curious to understand. You think the current CRMs, which call themselves as a system of record, it's a customer relationship management, not necessarily a new business relationship management software. So you think there is a white space there, and Capta is there to get that piece of it.
Yeah,
And the second question is, how do you think teams are going to adjust to two different CRMs in a sense, right?
right. So the irony is CRM is customer relationship management, right? So we like to say we put the customer in CRM. So again, focused on everything that takes to land an account, right? And I use HubSpot as my CRM for new business. I have a dozen, 15 contacts that I'm working at multiple levels, but when they become a customer, maybe one or two of those are important, right? So you leave those people that are not relevant, plus all the data that's associated with that marketing data, services, everything that's comes along with that CRM to over to Capta. What Our most successful teams, their account teams live in Capta. They do everything, their daily function, everything inside of Capta. They don't go back and forth between CRMs, right? They have a login, but again, that data can go back and forth bi-directionally to whomever needs to see it inside the CRM if they need reporting or things like the system of record would act, right? So that's important to know that they don't jump back and forth because the modern stack, as you well know, especially in like the AI world, right? A lot of companies have 10 different systems, right? So we eliminate that and they just do one system.
That's interesting that you bring in the whole piece of AI, Mark. So, how different or how have you intertwined AI into your product at Capta? Is
Right.
that something that you do or you're thinking about actively?
We do. We are of the mindset that AI in account management should provide insights, not necessarily a ton of automation, meaning that you can't automate building relationships, right? So again, I keep going back to the traditional CRM where you can automate that stuff, and a lot of stuff that you guys do, right? You automate that, the research, the outreach, all of that, right? But when it comes to being a customer, right, the 60%, we just went to Gartner's CSO conference, and one of their stats was 60% of customers that already are customers of these technologies feel like they're still getting too much email, right? They're getting inundated with marketing messages and things like that,
Yep.
right? So we're of the mindset that AI is super important, but it's meant to inform, to provide insights. An example on the Capta side is we have a feature called Capta Coaching,
Uh
and
huh.
that's a little panel on the right hand side that provides 3 things a day that you can do to improve your account, meaning you haven't touched this account plan in 60 days, or you got this email you might want to pay attention to. It provides you those insights, and then it provides you how to mitigate if there's a risk or how to do an outreach or things like that. So that's the way that we're building AI, and then of course into reporting and insights, some sentiment
Gotcha.
analysis on emails and notes to understand really what's going on in accounts.
That's very interesting. Every space today is becoming a white space, right? In the product, because every company out there is reinventing their AI stack and their AI offerings, and so. And I know for a fact that you're an extremely active member at Pavilion. You go for every show, and you're also
Right.
the Denver
Yeah, it's a great organization.
right? Yeah. So, what's the chatter about these AI companies that are coming out in specifically in the GTM stack? In personally, so what's the chatter about? How are you leaders thinking about AI in the GTM space?
It's to be honest, it's overwhelming, right? To be a little bit vulnerable, it's overwhelming. The amount of AI, like my not just my LinkedIn feed, but my Facebook feed is just filled with AI companies, whether it's outreach or content or whatever the case may be, right? It's really overwhelming, and groups like Pavilion, we all talk and we try to help each other cut through the noise to really understand what's out there and what's available. I'm of the mindset that I know there's a big picture, right? And at the Gartner conference again, they're talking like, and this is the research, right? And it shows that 5 years from now, AI is going to take over everything, right? That's their mindset. Of course, maybe half of that's going to be true, right? Maybe 40, 50% of that stuff is going to be true. I'm of the mindset that incremental improvements in things that I do on a daily basis are going to lead to those big changes 4 or 5 years from now. Meaning, the way I use it, I do research and use Chat GPT to analyze my calls, right, and provide emails and things like that. Things
Yep.
that are a little bit tedious. Incremental improvements will lead to bigger changes down the road, I think.
Absolutely, and I think the way it's rapidly evolving. So, with you now as, being the CRO at Capta, and given your experience in a world without AI, and now completely getting inundated in your words with AI, uh, and your experience in startups, how do you think AI is going to reshape the role of the CRO? Right, it is changing the world of SDRs, revenue operations, marketing, but
Yep.
CRO is a very crucial role in every business. What are the strategic decisions that will require human judgment? Right, everything is now AI. Calling is AI. How will you now be spending time, given that AI is already giving you the insights? AI is already providing you answers to most of the questions you would ask your sales teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's going to be managing a stack, not just people, right? You're going to be managing the technologies,
Nicely said.
trying
Yeah.
to figure out because things are changing so rapidly. Something that you buy now, 6 months from now, there could be something that's exponentially better than that, right? I think it's going to be continuing to stay on top of everything that's coming out. And again, with it being very overwhelming, you really have to to really focus on what's going to make an improvement for your company, right? Specifically. So I think that's what the future is going to be, a lot of that, not just managing people and processes, and it's going to be managing your more so your tech stack and what your AI stack looks like.
And with regard to your sales team here at Capta and the company in general, how are they adapting to AI? Uh, a lot of us initially felt threatened when the boom was really loud of the AI uh, replacing jobs. So, what's your approach in this entire change management today that you're looking, Mark?
I think it's just, again, a lot of it's just trying to improve what you do. That's on kind of the tedious level, right? To improve that and to um, make sure that you're providing things to your customers, right? And that's super important, as well as making sure that what you're doing is providing value to your company and to your customers. So I think just staying focused, not getting distracted, right, is super important, and just trying to figure out what's going to provide that value.
Do you see change in the sizes of the teams that you would kind of build at Capta? For
Oh,
example,
definitely.
high performers' vision is that for every company, uh, the sales teams should be looking more at doing their roles in terms of calling, emailing, and outreach. And we will take care of the research in
Yep.
terms of the company, the people. So, 60% of your CRM fields are generally filled with AI, using AI. Let's assume it's good quality data, it's all verified. So, how are you communicating this change to your teams, and how are you thinking about building teams in that case?
I mean, it's definitely changing that, right? The manpower, like I said, it's more about managing stack, and some part of that management will be not managing people at the lower levels. I don't mean to diminish anything that BDR and SDRs do by any stretch, because I know some really good ones.
Yep.
But a lot of that work, is going to be automated through AI, like you talked about. Going out and finding intent data, finding things, triggers that you're looking for, your ICP, automatically putting them into the CRM and automating the outreach from there, and
Yep.
without even touching. But I mean, again, duplicating efforts, right? Figuring out laser focus what your customer looks like, and then using technologies like yours to find those people and to automate that outreach, so you don't have to do a lot of that work, and then be there to field, right, more warm leads or warmer leads that come in, and then being able to have that conversation, right? That's super important. That's when the human element comes in. So you have to have people that are equipped to be able to it changes the game, right? Because you're not doing the outreach, you're not doing all that early work, but you have to be able to provide value at the point of first contact, because that's, a
Yep.
lot of companies have already made up their mind by the time they outreach who they're going to select, right? So you need to make sure that you take advantage of that.
Yeah. So, let's say about 5 to 7 years before, not too far away, even 5 years before, you were probably guiding your sales teams to concentrate on doing the account research extremely well, identify the buying committee. You should know who they are, what they are, and literally even track them to the restroom. Right? That's the kind of
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's the kind of rigor that you would want a salesperson to go through. But like I said, tools like High Performer are beginning to already provide that. So, what's your larger advice to this new age sales folks who are transitioning, or in itself looking to see how do we make better use of time? Because in a sales review meeting, you always said this, and they said, "Hey, I'm working on these accounts. It's just taking too much time to research and so on." So now that AI is already doing that for you, how do you think sales folks, or how are you advising your sales folks to make better use of the time?
This is funny that you asked that. I literally just wrote a LinkedIn post that I'm going to publish on Monday about my evolution of using LinkedIn. When I joined in
There you go.
2008, I was in Chicago selling printing, and I would literally print out profiles from LinkedIn. I would print them out along with my MapQuest directions. And then I'd go out and leave for the day doing cold calls. But that was my research, right? Researching on LinkedIn, figuring out everything I need to know about that person, and then going out. and that's only what 17 years ago, right? And now we're at the point where I don't have to do yeah, I mean, directions are right, of course, are taken care of, right? But now with all the AI and stuff doing that research for you and providing that information when you walk in, I mean, some of the calls, I'm experiencing with Sybil, right? So if I go on before the call, I hit a button, do research, and it lists everything I need to know about that person going into the thing. I mean, to me, it makes you a little bit lazy. Maybe you might miss something that the human eye can catch when you're going through. Maybe there's some of the nuances that it can't pick up on, but it definitely makes it a lot easier to know that person. And I was I was at sorry, long-winded answer, but I was at the Pavilion conference, the CRO conference last week, and the CEO of Hootsuite was talking about today's buyers. They do so much research that she said that most of them know more about your company and your offering than a lot of the salespeople do when they get on the call, right? Because the younger people are living on social, they're living in that information, right? They do all the research, they want to know ahead of time so that they're not surprised when they get on a call, and it's changing the buyer dynamics.
That's a very interesting point that you're bringing, Mark. Very interesting point because we know the power of AI. Like, for example, uh, the AI is capable of doing research so well that when there, it's literally, you would think that it is a human, even on the phone call, who's talking,
Right.
talking about the company, talking about your activities. You may just make it sound like, wow, this person actually knows me so well, and the first handshake happens, and then if a follow-up meeting is set up and it's actually the human who's, and where there's a handshake between AI to human, you probably think, oh my God, this guy was very different on the first call versus he actually doesn't even know what I'm doing, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's a big problem. I see. I'm not sure how you think about it because AI
Yeah.
does have the ability to go really all out when configured well. Your stack is configured well. You're able to get the best out of AI. But when the handshake happens from AI to actual human, we are seeing a lot of drop offs, right? I mean, we use this,
Interesting.
and it's difficult, it's hard, it's a hard problem to solve. So how do you go about, how do you think we should go about training these people of this handshake, and where do you think sales folks should now be spending more time on?
Yeah, that's interesting. And there's companies like 11x is the one that I think of that
Yep.
does that, right? And does that handoff. And I I hadn't done enough research to understand what you're saying, like the value drop off when they hand off to a real person. That's interesting. I mean, again, they need to be prepared, right? They need to know. I'm guessing they watch the call report, or watch the actual interaction to know what was said, and they have the notes. And if they're not reviewing those and they're not well versed in the interaction, then I can see where that would cause a drop off, right? Because no one wants to have the same conversation
Correct.
twice, right? They want to feel listened to, they want to feel valued, and they want to be able to move on the conversation versus reiterating what they already said. It's like
Yep.
talking to my kids, right? It's like, how many times have I said this? I just told
Exactly.
you this, right? I just told you this yesterday. Why are we having this conversation again?
Exactly. So I think while we look, we just have to wait and see how, in which actually helps me to think that sales folks should now be prepared even more than earlier. Earlier you could just have any pitch, you could have a talk through a script, but if AI is doing a better job there, the sales folks have to doubly prepare themselves before they get on to a call, and that's going to be a lot of hard work, right? Like,
Yep.
initially when we thought AI is going to make us lazy, but now as we go around this entire piece, I think it's about how do you prepare yourself even better to ensure that you have a meaningful conversation with the person you're getting to, right?
Yeah, I
And
think there's so much capability right now, right? That I mean, there's so many companies and so much capability. I think a couple of years from now, things will calm down, right? And the real value tools will emerge. I remember we talk about this, right? My old days of being a product manager, everything had to be mobile first, right? If you weren't mobile first, if that
yeah,
wasn't the first thing out of your mind when you were out of your mouth when you were doing a pitch, then you weren't even considered. Now what's mobile first? I mean, nobody cares because it's just automatically mobile first, right? I mean, it's not just automatically comes on your phone or your tablet, right? No one's
correct.
doing business functions on their tablet traveling on a train, which is what everyone thought was going to be the future of SaaS, right? So I think that's a case of things will calm down a little bit, and
All
it'll
right,
be
that's that's a great example, right? You were always talking about being mobile first. The website should be mobile first,
right, right,
right? Uh,
right.
and then transition to AI.
That was the first question on an RFP, right? Are you mobile first?
Correct.
Always.
Uh, I'm not sure how many new sales folks would even understand that
No,
today.
they wouldn't. They'd be, what do you mean it's not mobile first? Of course it's mobile first. Of course. That's just, it just happens.
Right. This brings us to the one last question before we get into some of the fun part of it. Is what advice would you give your account teams who feel that there's a lack of structure and there's overwhelming amount of tools out here? How do I drive growth? So, I mean, sales is GTM teams have always remained. Sales has always been there. Marketing as they tools evolve, they come and go. But I'm sure there is a centerpiece, a tentpole piece that never gets out. So what is that in sales teams that everyone should be adhering to?
Well, I mean, on the customer side, it's communication, right? Don't be afraid. You don't assume that they're always thinking of you. Pick up the phone, have that conversation with your customers. That never goes out. Wherever you record it, whether you know uh, we like to replace spreadsheets, right? That's what Kapta exists for originally, was just to get
Yep.
everyone out of spreadsheets. So those conversations, even if you record them in spreadsheets, right? We prefer obviously to be in Kapta, but if they're in spreadsheets, then that's fine. But pick up the phone, have those conversations. Don't rely on email and taken out of context and things like that, right? Don't be afraid to have that conversation, via video, like everyone's doing video now, right? Since COVID. So just have that conversation versus just being lazy and putting it through email.
Right, that's a sound piece of advice, and I'm sure my teams are going to listen to this. And I, as I about, hey,
Right.
don't just pick up the phone and call, right? Great,
Mhm.
nice speaking to you. And as I go through your profile on LinkedIn as well, you call yourself. I mean, you're a 2x founder. You probably have had a couple of exits before. You have two boys in your family as part of your family, or and then looks like you spend a lot of time on the golf course. So how do you manage all of this as a CRO? It's not going to be easy. And as a startup founder now, being a part of a very young team, founding team at Capta, how do you plan to balance all of this out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always hear from my wife and family, like, "How you must be getting really good. You golf a lot." I'm like, "That's not necessarily how it works, unfortunately." It's a little bit easier with I have teenage boys, so it's a little bit easier than if they
Okay,
were younger. And my wife is obviously awesome and lets me do that. But I think it's just making the time when you can. We spend a lot of time together. I spend, golfing takes 4 or 5 hours on a weekend,
exactly.
but it's just making time and priority and just having fun together.
I love it. Just having fun together. You seem all sorted in your new role as a CRO for Capta. Wish you all the very best, Mark, and welcome to this new age of AI.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thanks. This
much.
has been
It's
fun.
been a pleasure having you.
I
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much.
Thank you. Bye now.